You're listening to the first section of a multi-part episode. If you don't want to wait for the whole conversation, head over to Substack or Patreon and subscribe to Method and Madness. You'll get immediate access to our main episodes in a single file, as well as bonus content not available on the free side of the wall. madmethodpod.com. Welcome to Method and Madness.
This is an ongoing conversation about great books hosted by writers Aaron Gwynn and Brad Kelly.
In each series, we figure out what makes a book like Moby Dick or Blood Meridian worth reading,
and how writers might learn from it in order to master their craft.
We'll also explore the labyrinth that lies beneath the novel,
and find out what it means to our most insightful friends. He crossed the Pecos River just north of Sheffield, Texas, and took Route 349 south. When he pulled into the filling station at Sheffield, it was almost dark. A long red twilight with doves crossing the highway heading south toward some ranch tanks. He got change from the proprietor and made a phone call and filled the tank and went back in and paid. When he got to Dryden, it was about 8 o'clock. He sat at the intersection in front of Condra's feed store with the lights off and the motor running. Then he turned the lights on and pulled out on Highway 90 headed east. The white marks at the side of the road when he found them looked like a surveyor's marks, but there were no numbers, just the chevrons. He marked the mileage on the odometer and drove another mile and slowed and turned off the highway. He shut off the lights and left the motor running and got out and walked around and opened the gate, came back. He drove across the bars of the cattle guard and got out and closed the gate again and stood there listening. Then he got in the car and drove on down the rutted track. He followed a south-running fence, the Ford wallowing over the bad ground. The fence was just an old remnant, 3 wires strung on mesquite posts. In a mile or so, he came on a gravel plain where a Dodge Ram Charger was parked facing toward him. He pulled slowly alongside it and shut down the engine. The Ram Charger's windows were tinted so dark they looked black. Shagur opened the door and got out. A man got out of the passenger side of the Dodge and folded the seat forward and climbed into the rear. Shagur walked around the vehicle and got in and shut the door. "Let's go," he said. "Have you talked to him?" the driver said. "No." "He don't know what's happened?" "No. Let's go." They rolled out across the desert in the dark. "When do you aim to tell him?" the driver said. "When I know what it is I'm telling him." When they came to Moss's truck, Shagur leaned forward to study it. "Is that his truck?" "That's it. Plates is gone." "Pull up here. Have you got a screwdriver?" "Look in the jockey box there." Shagur got out with the screwdriver and walked over to the truck and opened the door. He pried the aluminum inspection plate off the rivets inside the door and put it in his pocket and came back. Got in and put the screwdriver back in the glove box. "Who cut the tires?" he said. "Wasn't us." Shagur nodded. "Let's go," he said. They parked some distance from the trucks and walked down to look at them. Shagur stood there a long time. It was cold out on the barrio, and he had no jacket, but he didn't seem to notice. The other 2 men stood waiting. He had a flashlight in his hand, and he turned it on and walked among the trucks and looked at the bodies. The 2 men followed at a small distance. "Whose dog?" Shagur said. "We don't know." He stood looking in at the dead man slumped across the console of the Bronco. He shone the light into the cargo space behind the seats. "Where's the box?" he said. "It's in the truck. You want it?" "Can you get anything on it?" "No." "Nothing?" "Not a bleep." Shagur studied the dead man. He jostled him with his flashlight. These are some ripe petunias, one of the men said. Sugar didn't answer. He backed out of the truck and stood looking over the Bajada in the moonlight. Dead quiet. The man in the Bronco had not been dead 3 days or anything like it. He pulled the pistol from his waistband of his trousers and turned around to where the two men were standing and shot them one each through the head in rapid succession and put the gun back in his belt. Today we're joined by the great Ben Avery of Lemonparty at benaveryisgood on Twitter/X. Ben, welcome to the show.
Thank you guys. I'm a big fan.
So, Ben, we've been having this ongoing conversation about No Country for a long time. And the last time you did a reread, you thought that you had figured out in that passage I just read who Sugar made the phone call to and why he shot these two cartel guys.
Yeah, I remember calling you. I was like, "It's an emergency. Call me." And you like you like picked up the phone. You're like, "Is everything okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I figured out why Sugar looked over the Bajada and what he was thinking about finally." Because I think you even asked your students this question and nobody could figure it out, and you couldn't figure it out.
Nope.
And I think I read No Country 7 times in like 2 years. I loved it. I think it's the book I've read the most, and it was a very quick read, right? And this kind of unlocks the whole. What did Bloom say about Sugar? He said if you compare Sugar to Judge Holden, he says Sugar is. I actually have the quote here because it pisses me off. He's Bloom says I am not one of the admirers of No Country for Old Men, which I found strained, and the brutality coming through it also. Nothing really mitigated it. The negative protagonist has none of the legitimacy or grandeur that Judge Holden has, which I disagree with. And I mean, Judge Holden, do we have to compare every villain to Judge Holden? Are we not going to enjoy anything ever, you know?
Right.
Right. Everybody has to be like Iago or like Judge Holden or something, or like, I mean, then burn every book in your library, I guess.
Yeah.
But
well, and Harold Bloom always seems a little he's always like any kind of violence always like throws him into a tizzy, to be honest.
Yeah, he said he couldn't make it through Blood Meridian like the first couple of times he tried. He was like fainting. It's like, okay, get a grip. So but me and Aaron have talked about it on the phone so much at this point. We have unlocked so many things in this book, except for who Ed Tom Bell is talking to, because I called Aaron many times trying to persuade him that these passages that are in italics, he's speaking. He is talking to somebody.
You've got me persuaded.
Yeah.
So, but this thing specifically unlocked everything about Sugar as a person, and it's so important because when he's looking out over the Bajada, there is a very quick section right before the famous scene from the movie before he talks to the proprietor, where it says, I got it right here. Which, Aaron, I think you read that first part real quick and then skip?
Yeah, I read that.
And then you skipped
that paragraph and skipped forward.
So it's one of those just, Paul Ascendaton, action things of when he pulled into the filling station, Sheffield was almost dark, a long red twilight with doves. He got changed from the proprietor and made a phone call and filled the tank and went back in and paid. So it's like 5 things he did really quick. But right there, he got the change from the proprietor, right? So he had to go inside and get a quarter. Then he went outside on the side of the filling station, and then he made a phone call on a payphone. Now, when he's doing that, and this is something I don't think the Coen brothers could have known, but Javier Bardem playing Sugar did know this, and so did the Coen brothers. And I don't think they would have caught it unless Cormac told them what was going on. When he goes out and he's on the payphone, he's looking out in the back there, and he's sizing up the proprietor's life, who he is. He married into this. He or whatever it is. This is who this man is, right? This simple country bumpkin. I think he calls him a cracker redneck, something like that. Pretty pejorative. Has no respect for the guy. Shiger thinks he has everything figured out. When he goes in, Javier Bardem plays this beautifully because he almost chokes on that little pecan he's eating when he figures out he has everything about this guy's life wrong. And he becomes very, 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 very mad and upset. And he's not in control of his emotions and he wants to kill him. And the quarter doesn't let him kill him, as we all know in the scene. But then when he later, that phone call was to those two guys he's going to meet. He goes and meets those guys. He's talking to them. He's looking out over the Bajada. He jumps back to that moment where he's at the payphone and he's looking out at the situation he's currently in and he's trying to size up everything. And he thinks he has this whole situation with this guy figured out. And he realizes that he doesn't know a goddamn thing and that he can't trust anybody. And he turns around and he shoots both of them in the head. That's what I think was going through Shigur's mind, because throughout the book, Aaron's pointed this out to me. This is why he's one of the great and evil antagonists of any. He's changing the whole book. Every small little interaction, he's learning and adapting and growing and evolving. And this thing with the proprietor, it isn't in there because it's cute with a flipping of a quarter, and it's so necessary for the plot. There's no fat in this story, and everything in there is Amanda Urban got a 600-page manuscript from Cormac supposedly, and then sent it back and said, "Here's the 300 pages that needs to be in this."
Wait,
so
a 600-page manuscript for this book?
This is what Aaron told me is in the Whitliff collection down in San Marcos.
Yeah,
but
it starts off as a screenplay. He writes it in 1980. He returns to it. He writes a 600-page novel manuscript, and Binky Urban whittled it down to a little over 300 pages.
I think this book is one of 4 masterpieces of Cormac's, and I'll fight everybody on that. And Aaron knows the 4 masterpieces I would list.
Yeah, it's Blood Meridian, Sutri, All the Pretty Horses, and this one.
This one, and
that's where I come down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm on the level with you there, Aaron. I just think it's like little things like that are just. It's so good.
I never thought the whole proprietor coin flip scene. I mean, I always thought of that as sort of characterization. Like we're gonna see Shigur's methodology, philosophy, ethic, or whatever sort of play out. So we as the audience kind of understand. We understand it when we get to Carson Wells later, and he's he sort of skirts around explaining who Shigur even is. But I never actually pieced it into the plot before. That's absolutely fascinating.
Well, I guess like Aaron pointed out to me before, it's important that we see in that scene that he abides by the code he set up for himself, the rules and everything. The quarter tells him he can't
violate the coin flip because he's pissed off. Right.
That's right. Yeah. So, however, though, he doesn't flip a quarter for Carson Wells, but I suppose he sees Carson outside the system the way he sees himself.
Well, I was talking with my students about this semester when I taught it, right? Okay, so there are guys that Shigur kills outright, right? There are guys that he's in a kind of posture of self-defense or in a gunfight. So he shoots Llewellyn Moss, he shoots some of the cartel members, etc. Then there are guys he flips to see if he can kill, like the proprietor. And then there's a woman he flips to see if he can save.
Yeah. Yeah, he's compassion for her.
Okay, drilling back on this thing real quick, just to make sure I really understand how you're coming at it. So you believe that Shigur shot the 2 cartel members because they're incompetent or because he questions himself?
Questions himself. That's the most important thing here, is that he goes, man, I'm falling through the void right now. I can't make a sense of anything. And and what a dangerous guy that is. I mean, you now have taken a guy who doesn't feel any remorse for killing people. He has that, what is it called? The warrior gene or whatever.
Right.
We try to lock those people up and, we want to breed them out of the system, right?
Right.
That thing of like, I can just kill people and you're on the stand and you go, yeah, I don't care at all what you guys do to me. I feel no remorse. That's him. And now he's going, yeah, man, to be honest with you, I can't really make heads or tails of what's going on in my life right now. I feel kind of aimless. I'm like Shigura's wanderlust at this point.
Right. Well, and then the response is like, I better kill everybody I run into from here on out for a while. Yeah. Eventually things will start making sense if I shoot enough people in the head, probably.
So he kills everybody that's in this thing except for him. And then he brings the money to the guy at the end and he's like, I wiped out everybody. We're going to do things differently now.
Right.
So he decides to eliminate everybody except the guy who owns the money,
I think that when he shoots the two guys out in the desert, the passage we just talked about, I think Shigura at that point decides to go after the money for himself. And I believe he changes his mind after he's shot.
Oh, interesting.
That's what I believe to be the case.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
In that scene, he asks those guys at least 3 separate questions, and they say, we don't know, nothing, or they make a joke. I mean, they're completely incompetent.
I always assumed he shot them because he realized they were idiots. Or honestly, I thought too, maybe, well, from the film, I don't think it appears in the book, but in the film, they ask him, do you mind riding bitch?
Right.
I kind of assumed that was caught up in the like, okay.
That's kind of the red herring of the whole thing is we keep thinking, are these guys so crass? They have no respect for human life. They're calling them rat petunias and all this shit. And Shigura's like, these guys are like jokers. They're like clowns. I got to get rid of them. But it was deeper than that.
Yeah, very interesting.
I think. I mean,
No,
Cormac's
I like
dead,
your
so
interpretation. Your interpretation actually puts better lines between things than mine. I kind of always assumed, for me as a reader, that like the machinations of the drug enterprise were like, I was never going to get enough evidence to understand it. It was all just going to be this kind of amorphous, like, I don't really understand who's who or what motivations are leading to what necessarily.
Yeah.
But yeah, that helps me understand what's actually happening on that side of things.
I mean, Cormac leaving that line in of him looking out over the Bahada, it's a long moment there. And so we're like, so Aaron, I remember Aaron called me and he's like, what is he thinking about? And I couldn't figure, and I can't believe because I just tried to picture everything he's doing. Like, I imagine it's such a funny thing, imagining a guy like Anton Chigurh on the side of some like redneck's gas station with even Anton Chigurh is like, hey, can you break a 5 for me? Can you break? And he's got to go out and like make a call to his boss. I'm like, what does that even look like? Right. And then I go, of course, when he's inside, he has all the context he thinks for this man's life. He goes, do you live out back? So when he's that means the payphone's on the side of the house. It's all right there. But god damn, I mean, I know, rereading is more important than reading it all, but like it took me 7 times to get there. He's like, it's so sparse, it's like he gives us almost nothing, but I don't know, maybe it is a bit of a greater reward when everything kind of clicks. This big puzzle clicks. There's one thing, and I'm not going to direct this whole thing since it's your guys' show. There's one thing at the end. I'm loving this. Okay. Well, there's one thing at the end, Aaron, I still can't figure out, but I don't want to like jump to the end or anything.
No, what is it?
I don't know how Chigurh gets away.
I don't think he does. I'm not sure he does.
Well, I'm not talking about him getting hit by the truck.
Oh, okay.
What I'm talking about is, so if you go to page
the motel.
Yeah, so this is called so like the narrative totally changes, right? Like I'm sorry, I don't have an MFA. I just like try to read a lot, but is the term focalization when it switches from the point of view of one person to another?
That's right.
Okay.
It starts in Chigurh's,
Aaron is my teacher.
It starts in Chigurh's POV, and he sees Belle pull
Thank
up,
you.
and then it switches to
To Bell.
Bell's POV.
Yeah, it switches very quickly. So the action is that Shiger walks out from the motel where Llewellyn got killed. He does his gun in the door and he does the Shiger thing and he walks in and he studies everything and he gets back out in his car and he's about to start it. And it says when he was about to start the car, he sees the Terrell County, and I'm paraphrasing here. He sees the Terrell County cruiser pull in. And he takes his hand off the key and he puts his pistol in his lap and he waits. And then it switches to the point of view of Bell. And we don't hear from Shiger again until he brings the money to the guy, right? So we know he got away. But it switches to the point of view of Bell, and Bell walks in and he's terrified and he goes, the interior voice of, "You don't know if he's out there.
Right.
You don't know a damn thing," all that stuff. And he has his
Right.
gun and he's standing in the hotel and he gets out of the hotel motel room and he's looking out at the parking lot. And every time in the book that someone feels like they're being watched, this is very important. Anybody that feels like they're being watched in the book, every single time it's true. No one ever feels like they're being watched and they're not. So that means Anton is still in the car and he's watching him at this point. And I think Bell has a line, Aaron, where he says, like, "You see the muzzle flash first,"
Right.
Yeah.
something like
I remember
that.
that.
So, but here's the thing. So he's scared out of his mind. He gets in his cruiser. He drives down the highway. You think he's leaving. He stops and he looks at the motel in his rear view. And that's the only way you can leave is on that county road, on that highway or whatever it is. He calls some sheriffs in. They come in. They pull. He's waiting for them to die in a shootout. He watches these young deputies run in there. He waits 10 minutes. He comes in. No car has gone on the highway, this or that. They come in. They search the lot. They search everything. And they go, "Gentlemen, I think we've been out generaled." And that's the end of the scene. So I don't know how the hell he got away. I have no idea.
Well,
I can't figure it out.
He could have left when Bell goes inside the motel.
Well, that's the thing. But when he walks back out of the motel, he
Right.
claims he's being watched. But what's interesting about this too, Aaron, is this is the first time that we see the vocalizations. They kind of blend together. There's no page break. There's no chapter break. It's just POV of Bell and then POV of Shiger. And I go, has Shiger completely possessed him now? And he is a ghost that lives within the heart of Ed Tom Bell, which will convince him to retire and to live in the cowardly, shadow of retirement for the rest of his life, thinking about what he could have done to stop the ultimate evil out there. And I think at this point, Bell is possessed by him. And I think that's why Cormac doesn't tell us how he gets away, because the way he gets away is within the heart of Ed Tom Bell. Now he's with him forever.
It was very Lynchian.
It is.
Something
Damn.
something I
I like it.
emphasized to my students in the car wreck scene where Shiger, he's hurt badly and he thinks he wondered if his median artery were severed. He thought not, right? So there's a 50-50 chance, one side, Shiger walks off, shades up somewhere and dies, right?
And that's a
His
major
median-
artery, right?
Yeah. He could be bleeding internally right now, right? Or we've also seen him doctor himself pretty good. Does Shiger make it? The point isn't that the point isn't that we take a position. Oh, he definitely lives. He definitely dies. The point is, Cormac, like so many other things, stands this on the knife edge. So there's an equal chance, just like a coin flip, that he lives, that he dies, and that the hero retires from his job because he doesn't want to confront a man who very well might be dead.
Yeah.
I know this is a huge sidetrack, but I just looked up median artery because I was like, I never hear about the median artery. What is that? Listen to this. This is kind of weird, actually. The median artery is an artery that is occasionally found in humans. The prevalence was around 10% in people born in the mid 1880s, compared to 30% in those born in the late 20th century, and 35% of people born as of 2020. I don't know if that has any bearing on the book. I just think that's weird. There's this artery that some people have. How does that work?
Hmm.
I have no idea what that means.
And then does he know? Anyway, that's sending me down a rabbit hole. But no, I think Aaron, I think you're making an excellent point. I mean, I think when you get to the film adaptation of this, that you're getting into this territory where a lot of people found the film, who people who didn't read the book and never were going to read the book, found the movie a little bit somewhat unsatisfying, right? Because this is where we get into territory where it's sort of most unlike the promise of the premise in a way. It's nothing's going to be tidy, nothing's going to be obvious at the end. There's no satisfaction. And I think, I think there's a way in which the endings of all three of our main characters are that way, right? The killing of Llewellyn Moss basically happens off screen or off the page. And so we don't get to have that showdown. The characters never even really meet, right? They are sort of in the same space time here and there, but there's never that showdown. There's never the look in the guy in the eye. There's never the like battle of wills kind of thing going on. That's one of the most fascinating aspects of the book to me structurally.
Yeah, Bell hunts Shagur in the first third of the book. He will sit in the very places Shagur has sat, stare at the same dead television. And then the last third of the book, Shagur haunts Bell.
Yeah, and Bell at that point, I think I mean, correct me if you guys interpret this differently. I mean, Bell's kind of he's stuck in this stasis between the sense of duty, but also hoping that he doesn't actually have to deal with it.
Yeah, he doesn't understand it.
Right.
Right. He doesn't want to confront something he doesn't understand.
Right.
I think it's pretty obvious too that Cormac gave us a protagonist that is actually probably capable of finding him. But Bell is very, very. He's not a redneck. Carson Wells. What does he say about him? He goes that redneck. He says that cracker sheriff of that redneck county.
Like
yeah, he's a hayseed sheriff in a hayseed county in a hayseed state.
Yeah,
I don't think about him at all.
And Carson gets blown away immediately. And Ed Tom Bell's way smarter, than all these guys and way capable. So, yeah. And also, by the way, Llewellyn Moss is very talented. All these guys are very talented guys. Llewellyn Moss is a decorated sniper of Vietnam. Yeah. And you know what I think actually that Amanda Urban did, and I always say things like this to Aaron, and Aaron goes, "Well, we can't know," and I go, "Okay, well, I like I like firing in the dark, but actually, we could if we went down to the Whitliff, Aaron. We got to." So I think the manuscript is. Because the last, 30 pages of this book is Ed Tom Bell. Here's some scenes that you might forget. Even after reading the book 3 times, I read it the 4th time, and I was like, fuck, I forgot about this sad scene. Ed Tom Bell, he keeps going back to where he found the drug after he retires. He goes back to the pasture where he found the drugs. He even finds some shells. He finds bullets. He is miserable. And he's just looking back at his life the last, I don't know how many years, kind of retracing his steps. The whole thing with the trial with the guy. So there's a small, Brad, I don't know if you remember it, but when Ed Tom Bell is driving to the motel where Llewellyn died, and he doesn't know what happened yet, he passes a car that's on fire. And there's like 10 cop cars next to it. It has nothing to do with Shagur.
You kind of think it does for a second, though.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. But Shagur wouldn't do something like that. Why would he set a guy's car on fire? It doesn't make any sense. It's nonsense. It's complete and total nonsense. Drives past his cars on that. So Ed Tom Bell, he keeps. There's this red herring to this whole Shagur thing that he keeps being obsessed with. He finds the quote unquote Mexican boy that did this. He goes and visits him in jail, and he goes, "I know you didn't do this. I know you're innocent." And the guy laughs in his face.
Yeah.
He goes, "What are you, an idiot?" He goes, "I killed him. I killed them. I set their car on fire. Of course I did, you idiot."
Right.
And Tom Bell shows up to the trial. He's invested in this guy's life for like a year, and the guy is laughing at him like, "Dude, I'm a psycho. I killed these people." Right. So I think the last half of the book that Amanda Urban got rid of was, I think the first half was going to be all this action, the thing that gets him to retire and him chasing the ghost of Sugar. I think that's would have been the last 300 pages. I think it would have been the trial. There's a scene that's, oh my God, you don't do this. Tom Bell goes and visits Llewellyn Moss's dad.
Yeah.
And says, I'm sorry I couldn't save your son. He sits on the porch with him and they talk about Vietnam and all this shit.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, leave it alone, you know?
Yeah. He's obsessive.
He's obsessive, and he's making everybody else think about this. He's tracking down the kids at the high school that supposedly ran into Sugar. He's making them cry in the principal's office.
Right.
He's a sad bastard.
Yeah. I think Amanda Urban probably just cut 300 pages worth of racial slurs, but
it's like a whole page of them. Cormac, is that necessary?
Yeah. So this passage, I was thinking about what Ben said about these monologues from Sheriff Bell, and I really tortured my students this semester. I was like, "Who's he talking to? Who's he talking to?" And they're like, "Dude, we're just in a class."
We have a couple of guesses, Aaron, right? But do you have an answer?
Well, check this out. Well, this just proves that he's talking not only to someone, but he's talking to someone who's in the room with him. Neighbors were alerted when a man ran from the premises wearing only a dog collar. You can't make up such a thing as that. I dare you to even try. But that's what it took, you'll notice. All that hollering and digging in the yard didn't bring it. That's all right. I laughed myself when I read it. There ain't a whole lot else you can do. Now, if you're thinking this, or you're just narrating into the space, you don't say things like, that's all right, I laughed myself. He's addressing someone.
Yeah, and he's not addressing a crowd, because I also thought, could this be at a trial or something like that? But I think he's addressing a specific.
It's way
person.
it's way too sort of sprawling and digressive for. Yeah. Who's he talking to?
Well, he also admitted at one point that he still talks to his daughter that they lost when she was very young, that they don't talk about.
Oh, good point.
So is this the ghost of his daughter that he still speaks to? And he says he doesn't tell his wife that he still talks to her because that's embarrassing. As if she would care, by the way.
Right? If it was the daughter, you wouldn't say, I talk to my daughter sometimes.
In the narrative, yeah, it's true. Yeah,
in the narrative, right? Because if you're talking to the daughter, you wouldn't say, I talk to my daughter sometimes. She's like, you're talking to me.
Right, so that's canceled out then. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
It's not Loretta because he talks about her. It's not Ellis.
He doesn't seem he's in prayer to me.
It doesn't seem at all like it's in prayer. He's speaking to someone, and he's speaking to someone who can react. It's not just like an idea of a listener or any. I mean, he's confessing all of this. This whole thing is about how he became a worse man.
Yeah.
That's what this whole thing is about.
Well, he was a bad man, and he stayed a bad man in his mind, because he ran in World War II like a coward, and then he ran from Sugar like a coward in his old age, and then he ran from his job, and he keeps running and running and running, and he doesn't know any other way to live. In the same way that Moss did, I think that's why he's so sympathetic toward the guy. The guy can't stop running.
Yeah.
He was sheriff of this county when he was in his early 20s.
Right, right when he came back from World War II, right? I mean,
that's an elected position. Like he's so not only is he a law enforcement official, but like he's a politician. A sheriff of a county is a political position,
right?
A minor one in some instances, or more minor, but it's still something you have to campaign for and run for and be voted in for.
Yeah,
and he says you have pretty much the same powers as God.
But what's interesting in that passage, I was just looking at that passage again today. He also mentions in there that there's no actual county laws. So technically, there's this you're in this weird limbo where you have all of this quote unquote authority, but you actually don't have a law to enforce. You're sort of like, your authority comes from the fact that people look at you and say, that's the sheriff. That's what it comes from.
He's talking about the Constitution of the state of Texas, right?
Right.
This whole thing, this is really in the weeds. We don't get into it. This is
that's what we're doing.
This is because of the Rangers, right? Because they were the law enforcement body in the 19th century up until they were disbanded briefly between like 1866 and 1875. That was the law enforcement agency that had the run of the state. And there are directives about how companies of rangers are able to police. And now, of course, they're under the DHS, I'm sorry, the Department of Motor Vehicles in Texas and Highways, or whatever
the
the agency's
Rangers?
called.
Yeah,
The
the
Rangers
DMV.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh.
And so,
Or
but
the what is it? The Department of what?
it's like DHPS or
Yeah, I think
something.
it's
Like,
it's something like that. The highway patrol thing.
yeah,
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 Texas
yeah.
is its own country, really. And it looks like the Texas Rangers can pretty much do whatever the hell they want.
There are only 70 of them in the whole
I know.
state,
I
right? So
know.
they mostly do like,
There's five companies, A, B, C, D, and E. And
right.
I think the FBI will even call them and be like, hey, can you help us crack this one? Because those
Yeah,
guys are so
yep.
good.
They're very good, and they're very elite. And weirdly, I was hanging out with Philip Meyer in 2015. We were heading up to the gun range in Lampasas, and we pulled off the side of the road, and we're going into like a convenience store to get something to drink.
I love Lampasas. Great Taco Bell.
Yeah, yeah, so yeah, and so who steps up in front of us and opens the door? A Texas Ranger,
Hell yeah.
right?
Wait, who was it? Because it might be my baseball coach. I was best friends with a Texas Ranger.
I didn't get the name, but he opened
Damn
the
it.
door for us.
Did
But
he look
like,
like George Strait?
yeah,
Oh,
pressed.
it might have been my my guy.
Well, they all wear the same thing: pressed white dress shirt, pressed tan like breeches,
The Bangora
cowboy
straw
boots.
hat.
Yeah,
Bangora straw, yeah.
and a Sig Sauer pistol.
You get the
Sig Sauer-
1911, right?
No, they carry Sigs now.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, I remember my coach always had the 1911. I thought it was cool as hell.
Yeah, no, and so we got back in the truck, and I looked at Philip. I was like, "Dude, that was a Texas Ranger." He was like, "What?" I was like, "No, that was a Texas Ranger. You see his Sig?"
They're
And
so
he was
great,
like, "Oh my
man.
gosh, you're right." Yeah, and he goes, "There's only 70 of them in the whole state." Anyway, that's
Well,
wild.
anecdotally, just to show you what they could do, one time I was at a football game and my coach was there, and he's just enjoying the high school football game, and there was this one little girl who said she was being followed by this creepy guy, and I had seen him kind of walking up and by the fence, but I just thought there's something wrong with him. She said something to him. He walked over. He grabbed him, kind of the way you would like a feral cat. He grabbed him by the after he had talked to him for like a second. He grabbed him by the collar. And then he went into the field house there. It was a visitor game. He went into the field house. He cleared everybody out. He had cops watch the door that were there, and he locked the door and he threw the guy in there. And within 45 minutes, sheriff's cars were showing up and they arrested the guy. So he just turned it into an interrogation office. He told us that he could shoot anybody he wants and he doesn't even have to file paperwork. And this was like the most humble guy I've ever met in my life. He's actually very calm and very intelligent. But
I like that the part that he was proud of is that he didn't have to do paper.
Right.
basically he could just shoot. He could just fire with he didn't have to report to anybody. He was the head of Company C, so he could do anything he wanted, which is the one out in Lubbock.
I love Rangers.
Yeah,
I
they
think
can. I mean,
they're incredible.
that's who you want. That's the best possible
Of
person
course.
you could have in terms of law enforcement is that guy.
100%.
No
I don't
bullshit.
disagree at all.
He operates without he doesn't second guess himself. He uses his intuition. The guy ended up being a weird creep who was trying to take pictures of little girls at a football game, and he probably took him in a room and was bashing his head against the concrete wall until the guy admitted to it, and we got him out of there. And hopefully they threw him in a wood chipper. In Texas, they have wood chippers in the prisons everybody gets pushed into.
I don't always go in for extrajudicial, torture of people, but anyone who messes with a kid, dead to me. Just go nuts.
They got it coming. Yeah.
They got it way coming. You mess with a kid, you're dead to me.
Yeah.
So back to No Country. Do you guys know of another book of this quality where the hero becomes worse and the villain becomes better?
It's a good question. I can't say
Uh,
that I do. When you say
well,
the hero, do you mean Llewellyn or do you mean Ed
No,
Tom Bell?
I mean, Bell. Yeah.
Yeah.
well, no, I guess the kid becomes worse, right?
I think the kid
Over time.
grows some. I think he becomes more. I mean, he doesn't. McCarthy doesn't allow him to have redemption, but I think he, I think he improves, um, and the judge stays the same. But in this book, Shagor becomes a better man, and Sheriff Bell becomes a worse man.
Yeah,
Mhm.
And by better man with Shagor, I mean
sure.
relative to where he started. I
Yeah.
mean, he
Well, because he had the
loads birdshot into his shotgun to prevent raining
Right.
glass down on the people below. This is after he gets shot. He never worried about innocent bystanders or collateral damage before.
well, at one
Right.
point, we do know that Shiger was this guy who was very chaotic because he says he confesses to Carson that he got arrested
Hmm.
initially.
Hmm.
Why he had to kill that first guy, put the handcuffs around his neck, is didn't he try to see if he could what's the direct quote, Karen?
I wanted to
Aaron?
see if I could extricate myself by an act of will because I
Mhm.
believe such a thing is possible.
Yeah, so he's at a diner before that. Some guy asks him if he's a queer or something.
That's
Anton goes,
exactly what he says, and it's not even in the text. I
"Yeah, it is,
guarantee
right?"
you he uses the F slur. No, I'm serious.
I'm
Yeah.
serious. Yeah,
You can
yeah.
tell that that's what he says. Shagor says, and then he said something that was pretty hard to ignore. End quote.
So then
Mm.
Shiger goes to see you in the parking lot, and Shiger killed him when he came out
Yeah.
in front of all of his friends, and he waited for
Arn
the.
sees him. Arn
He,
sees him.
I mean, Shiger could have got away, but he waited for the cops, and then they arrested him, and then he killed the sheriff.
He
So and then
allowed
or the
himself to be
deputy.
arrested.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he allowed himself.
allowed
Yeah.
himself because he wanted to see if he could extricate himself by an act of will. That's pretty reckless.
Yeah.
And at the
But
end,
it speaks
he's
of a
not reckless at all.
it speaks of a,
No, he's
almost
very
a
careful.
it speaks of a kind of boredom almost, right?
Well,
Like
what does he watch on TV when he's holding up in the hospital? He watched whatever came on.
right, right.
Never changed the channel. He just sits there watching because it's all equally foreign to him.
Mhm. Mhm.
He
Yeah,
is
he's a
he is that
strange.
warrior gene.
He does. He does. I mean, I think, not to try and diagnose, but I mean, there's something a little bit on the spectrum about him, right? Or am I misreading that, do you think?
Yeah, yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I think
He
he's
has
a psychopath.
autism.
I think he's a
Yeah.
psychopath. I mean,
Mm.
he has all the direct tendencies of psychopathy.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
they took that out of the DSM now. Now it's called uh, oppositional defiant
Oh,
and
is that the
anti
same
no
thing?
ODD.
antisocial personality disorder. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
okay.
Now
Sure,
it's
yeah.
diagnosed as antisocial, which I mean I think psychopath does a better job at that. Even though I'm
Yeah.
obviously not a
Yeah,
clinician.
yeah. Pol Pot was very antisocial, I hear. It's like so ridiculous. Like these aren't good enough words to describe anybody. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
It's still bad. Like you can change the verbiage, but it's not good to be that
It's
thing.
not good
Well,
to be
well,
that, right?
when someone says antisocial, I imagine a guy that wants to be in the library, like, and is
Yeah.
like,
Yeah,
very quiet.
I'm kind of antisocial. Like if you're having an event, I want to leave by 9 p.m.
Yeah,
That's kind
That's
of
me.
antisocial. Yeah.
you're not a
Never
mass
have I
murderer.
never
Right,
have I flipped
exactly.
a coin to see if
Right.
this is a guy I kill or a girl I spare.
Right.
So Ben,
Yes.
big picture.
Yeah.
If you were to recommend this book to someone
Yes.
and you were to tell them, what is this book about?
This
Thematically, what would you
yeah.
say this is about?
This book is a book where you read and then you put it down and you go, I don't know if bad and good are things anymore.
Say
Because
more about that.
well, you read it and everything falls into this gray void where I go, what is a good person? What is a bad person? Because I look at a guy, because I look, well, you go, someone will go, a good person is a man of principle. And I go, I agree. And you know who had outstanding principles was Anton Chigurh
That's
in the
right.
book of No Country
right.
for Old Men.
Unchanging principles.
Yeah.
Unchanging.
That transcend things like money.
Yeah. He
So,
kept to
like,
his word.
What is this? But you know, then Bell lives by the sort of like Western Christian idea of like, if I feel really, really guilty and I suffer internally all the time, somehow that will show some sort of, you know, like guilt, I guess I have for my sins, and then it makes it okay, like all the bad I've done or all the, you know, isn't there a verse like, if I think to do something good and I do not do good, then I've done bad. Then I've done bad. I think Paul has some sort of line like that,
Right.
and that is Ed Tom Bell. He knows what he is supposed to do, but he also wants to save himself. But he keeps saying, "Well, I signed up to lay my life on the line, and you have to be willing." It's the very first thing. It's his ultimate thing. It's you got to put your soul at hazard, and he tells you at the beginning of the book, he's like, I'm not going to do that. I know I signed up to, but I'm not going to do it. In World War II, when my buddies were all getting killed, I ran. Okay. And I ran to save myself.
But they were dead. They were all dead, right?
They were all dead. But he says he can't know that for sure. And so he ran.
Right.
So he ran like a quote unquote coward, right? Even though he knows rationally he would have been, you know, riddled. But he says himself, I could have took out hundreds of Nazis, you know, if I had stayed behind. So
sounds fun.
Yeah, it sounds like a good way to go out, right? A cigarette in your mouth.
Like a boss. Like a boss.
Because didn't he have the machine gun or something he took from
He did have a machine gun, and he thought he could get like up into a good like vantage point, you know. Yeah.
By the way, that sounds fun, but that's a crew served weapon. And with a crew served weapon, what is going to happen to you is what almost happens to him. You're going to get flanked, right? And you're going to get smoked.
Yeah.
That way,
you're going to get overwhelmed.
You're going to get overwhelmed because you need protection on either. You need protection at either flank to use that weapon.
Well, I think this brings up the thinking about Ed Tom Bell, because Aaron, you said he gets worse. I don't know if he gets worse. It does bring the question to me of like, okay, you can have this sort of moral principle, but about, you know, Ed Tom Bell should go catch Anton Chigurh. But let's say you know to a certainty that there's no way you're going to get him and he's going to kill you. Are you? And I'm not trying to answer this question. I'm saying this is sort of the question of the book. Is that still like the right thing to do? Like,
yes.
I think so.
According to Ed Tom Bell, it's the right.
According to Ed Tom Bell, it's the right thing to do. Right. But then it's also like, what is that? There is, I think, a question that's worth asking at least, or interrogating, which is like, well, then, like, what is the point of doing that? Just so that you're
getting me fired up. Y'all are getting me fired up. I'm about to unload. The point of it is to go die. That is the point of it. The point of it is to go die. He should have stayed there and died. And France, when the Germans were advancing on his position, he didn't do that. And he should go out and find Chigurh and die and make a good death. He should make a good death. That's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to make a good death. And
I mean, especially when you take on the role of the sheriff, the protector, right? I mean, you know, this is something that he has chosen for himself, a life role, right? He as you were saying, Ben.
Yeah. Llewellyn Moss made a good death. Llewellyn Moss made a good death. He died trying to protect an innocent girl.
Yeah. But he also sold out his wife for hubris.
Well, he didn't realize he was doing that, though.
Right.
Yeah, I think like Ed Tom Bell has what makes him such a damn good detective is his intuition. And I think that's what makes a great artist. And the way Ed Tom Bell kind of looks at everything, he is like a great novelist or something. I mean, he can put together a story quicker than anybody. So he's connected to some sort of divine thing that is, you could call it intuition, right? So it would make sense that he would listen to it, because his intuition goes, hey, man, you're going to die if you stand in this parking lot any longer. You better get the hell out of here. So his intuition's right. But he's supposed to a great man is supposed to die in that situation. And
Yes.
I don't think it's any coincidence that Chigurh is this sort of vague, faceless, foreign entity, because it's a manifestation of the thing that is chasing Ed Tom Bell from across the Atlantic Ocean.
Right.
Right.
It's coming all the way across, like in the wind, and it's going to follow him to the grave. And he didn't. He Ed Tom Bell is a coward, right? He
By his own lights, by his own standards, yes.
And he's the classic case of a guy who ruminates about his problems so much that he becomes increasingly paranoid to the point of inaction. And he doesn't do anything about it. What does he do? What does he do? He has a wound that he keeps fingering, and he squeezes it. He's putting it under light and he's not doing anything. He's just examining his wound until he's dead. It's a dog, chasing. Have you seen a possum die? When a possum is dying, they'll just chase their tail for 8 hours in a circle in the street until they're dead, because they have no sense of direction anymore.
Okay, so there's this other thing.
That's what he is. Bitch.
Vietnam.
I would have gone after Chigurh. I would have taken out both pistols and started firing at Chigurh's truck.
Yeah.
And then
dual wielding.
And then I would have been killed immediately.
Okay, so Vietnam is a huge presence in this book. Like it runs all through the book. Llewellyn Moss is a Vietnam veteran. He was a sniper. Carson Wells is a Vietnam veteran. He was a lieutenant colonel in special forces. When they go
I wonder if Chigurh was too in Vietnam.
It's possible.
Right.
When Bell and Wendell go out to the crime scene, Wendell says it must have sounded like Vietnam out here, and Bell says Vietnam. Over and over and over and over again. I think on a very deep level, the book speaks to some guilt I believe Cormac McCarthy had over not being in Vietnam, over not deploying to Vietnam. Now, I can't prove that. I can't lay all that out, but I believe that Ed Tom Bell's, protestations about, I should have stayed there, I should have died. I think it speaks to some kind of suppressed guilt that McCarthy had over not serving in Vietnam.
McCarthy was born in 1933. Aaron, could he have enlisted? It was 1960 what?
1965. 65
yeah.
Is when we first committed combat troops. That's when the Marines went in after Gulf of Tonkin, and then it ramped up. He could have gotten there. He was
already out of. He'd already been out of.
32.
He'd already been out of the Air Force at that point.
That's right. Yeah, he could have reenlisted. He could have he couldn't have gone to officer candidate school because he didn't have a college degree.
Yeah, it says he served from 53 to 56 in the Air Force.
Right.
Yeah, so he missed Korea.
Korea.
Oh, he did.
He would have been a boy during World War II, so he missed it, but he would have been aware.
Yeah.
Right. He would have been
Oh my God,
of
you're
it.
right.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask this. Do you guys, I'm not saying how you should feel. I'm not talking about the right way to feel. I'll just speak for myself. I live with an enormous sense of guilt that I wasn't able to go over to Iraq or Afghanistan and fight and bleed and maybe die, next to those guys we sent over. And was the war mismanaged? Absolutely. Was Iraq a complete misadventure that resulted in, countless, of our men killed, countless Iraqis killed, a complete just goat fuck, to use a term from the book. Absolutely.
Right. A goat fuck in the desert.
I don't believe the Iraq war is defensible. However, I live with a sense of guilt that my buddies went over there and fought and suffered, and I did not. Now, I don't think I should feel that, but I do feel that.
I don't feel that personally. I mean, I guess I feel sort of sympathy and compassion for the guys who did go over there, and I kind of feel like they shouldn't have had to, or felt like they had to, or but yeah, I mean, we talked about this a little bit, Aaron. We'll talk a little bit more about this probably in the madness portion of this series. But my dad was drafted into Vietnam as it was combat infantry, and I mean, he would have been pissed at me if I would have signed up.
Right.
Because to him, it was like, if you do that, then you're just deciding you're a number that they get to push around for whatever bullshit political purposes they have. Right. So that was the messaging I got kind of as a boy. And it wasn't like dismissing the soldiers individually.
Of course.
It was just like you have to realize that if you do that, you're deciding to participate in a game that's kind of bullshit, would have been what he would have told me, I think. So I don't have that guilt, I guess.
Do you have it at all, Ben? I'm not saying you guys should.
So what's funny is like every guy in my high school that ended up like going over there was like, they were like the brightest guy, and like it was like guys that were like, I hate to use this, but it was like almost, I'm like, it was like Looney Tunes to me. I'm like, what? I'm like, Bugs Bunny is going to fight. I'm like, what are you talking about? It was like all cartoonish. I remember one guy got shot in the head and came back, and like he had a big scar in his head, and but like he wasn't affected mentally. And I was like, what is going on over there?
But that's that's the rational kind of response to this. I'm talking about deep in your spirit.
Feeling guilty for not fighting in a war.
Yes.
No, because I identify with who Melville identified with, which are the Quakers. You know what I mean? I am a total pacifist pussy. I want to be walking in a field of lilies with a notepad, like making notes. And you know what I love more than anything, Aaron, is I like being alone in a room thinking. That's what I like.
Too. Oh, I like it too.
Making contact with anybody, whether it's a hug or a handshake, or you better bet, a punch to the face. I don't like touching another human being. I find it, I find it abusive when someone hugs me. I feel like I'm being molested or something. So
I think it's a really honest response. I think it's a really honest response. I'm not saying I would have been a good soldier. I'm certainly not defending the Iraq War. At least of all, I've been very outspoken about the way, like, I thought it was a shit show from the beginning, only got worse, and I feel like we sold our men out for nothing. However, that's a rational level. On a gut and a spirit level, I live with a sense of guilt. I'm not saying that's the way I ought to feel, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. I'm saying I feel that way.
Yeah, I guess to me, you view the military, and this is very unfair, but I kind of see it as like working for a company that doesn't give a shit about you and totally sees you as expendable. And I saw that in high school with football players who would work very, very hard to win a state championship for these pot-bellied coaches who were spitting these, black snakes of spit in the ground, and, couldn't bend over to tie their own shoes. And I remember one kid, he was a power lifter, and he worked really hard, and I always saw him in the gym, and he was like going to regionals and state and everything, and he was on the football team, and he was doing something you were doing, Aaron, and he popped a thing in his back, and he couldn't ever compete again. But he was in the hospital after like multiple surgeries. And I remember my mom talking to his mom, and she goes, "Oh, are all the coaches, coming by?" And she goes, "No, they haven't reached out. Not a one has reached out."
Oh my God.
And this was a small high school, and I then I remember looking at it like, "Oh, we're meat." I remember having the thought when I heard that, we're meat, we're expendable. We don't matter to people who have leverage over us. So if we quit, they'll just find another human being, or what they would see as like, I might as well be like an android, basically, that they charge and send into battle. So football didn't make sense. And to me, people who were really into football had the same mentality as people that really love the military. And football was king in West Texas, and we needed to go to, everyone in West Texas thought we needed to go to war, and the whole thing just scared the hell out of me. So, I kind of retreated completely.
I think
and
it's
played golf.
I think it's a rational and an honest reaction. I guess I'm addressing the irrational. So,
but Aaron, I've always pointed out these great generals in war, they really had compassion, and these were great leaders and great men and I don't think that's really a thing anymore.
Right.
Where is the Ulysses
Well-
S. Grant? Where are
Well,
these beautiful
there might be
memoirs?
some of it, but it's certainly not something you can rely on as being like a systematic characteristic of the bureaucracy, right?
yeah.
Well,
Like there might be a
supposedly
guy
Robert-
in there who does care, but it's
Jim
just-
Mattis-
I was
Jim
told
Mattis is-
Robert E. Lee is like Hitler or something, and like these are some of the great leaders of history. You know,
Jim
What
Mattis
he is.
in our age, in our
I'm
present
seeing our
age,
show has just been canceled. It's
yeah,
not even
yeah.
live,
We're kicked
but-
off YouTube. We're kicked
Weird.
off every. Jim Mattis comes closest, I believe, in our present age to Ulysses S. Grant. I won't be listing to Ulysses S. Grant, etc. I won't list Sherman either because I think he was a prick. But Sheridan, in his early days, to General Washington, who was a great general, even though he didn't win many battles. He also didn't need to.
But it's unfortunate that all the media figures that are from the military are all people that are trying to make a buck and lying about their experience over there when there's actual people who have done extraordinary things.
That's right.
And that's what pisses me off. Marcus Luttrell is a liar.
Uh-oh.
If his lips are moving, he's lying. He lied about that whole thing. But that doesn't mean that doesn't mean every guy in the military is a guy who's just lying constantly. You know what I mean?
That's right. That's right.
You know,
Do you
not
just-
well,
Do you want
those
to just
guys-
get Ben? Do you want all the Navy SEALs in the universe to be mad at? Just like, oh man, you've been Ben. I don't know if you know this, Brett. Ben has been at war. At war.
how dare you? I'm a Quaker.
Yeah.
You've been at war with some Navy SEALs lately, sir. I see you in the trenches.
I think Sean Ryan's possessed by the devil, and he's
Well-
sent here to drag men to hell.
That's
Well,
obviously
since
true.
you brought it up, can you give us like a 2-minute, like, what is that? I don't know anything. I've seen the Sean Ryan show. I've listened to a couple episodes when they were talking about aliens and shit. But like,
He was
what
a
is-
Navy
what's going
SEAL,
on?
and then he was a CIA contractor for a while.
Okay, okay.
Ben
But
would
there's
say
more to the
additional-
story, I'm sure.
Well, Ben
Well,
would
he was
say.
he was a drug trafficker in South America. He had a network of drugs that he was trafficking for
No, let me
6 or
just-
7 years, and
let me
he
just-
never clarified if he was working undercover at that point or not.
Okay, well, let me just before we put out that Sean Ryan is a drug trafficker as a co-host of the Method and Madness podcast, let me just say, do we know that for sure?
He said it. That's
He
the thing.
did.
People call me a conspiracy theorist. I'm like, he said it. It's his
Interesting.
words. Go listen to his interview with Megyn Kelly. And he goes,
Real-
yeah,
okay.
I was an adrenaline junkie and I became a kingpin. I think the term he used.
Well,
And he got scared. He said the feds were on his ass and he got scared. He booked a ticket out of there and he has changed his name. Supposedly he had come into contact with the psychedelic substance called ibogaine or something like that. He goes on Rogan. He keeps trying to take Rogan to take ibogaine. All of his followers say he's a born again Christian, and they make the argument to me that can't anybody go to heaven if they ask for forgiveness? And people go, where is the? They go, I've never seen Sean Ryan say he feels guilt over like any of this. Because if you're running a drug trafficking ring, you've ruined thousands of lives, and you've had people killed for sure.
Yeah,
was he
inadvertently.
really
good thing.
doing drug trafficking though?
So we don't even know if that's real, Aaron. So, and also if he's making that up, why is he making it up? And
Why would you make
do I
that up?
trust him? Why did his show come out of nowhere and become
Okay,
very
all right.
popular?
So he has said originally Sean Ryan had wanted to bust drug lords in Colombia, but after his stint as a sniper,
Oh, he was a sniper too.
shooting terrorists in Iraq, the former SEAL was so adrenaline addicted that he set up a drug trafficking ring in South America. I had built quite the network down there, Sean told the Megyn Kelly show. I got tipped off that the federal police were surveilling me, so I abruptly left the country. So this is an article like in praise of Sean Ryan. Former SEAL became drug trafficker until God got his attention. So
Yeah.
it does seem from a little stuff I'm looking up on the internet that Sean Ryan has at the very least claimed to have been a drug trafficker. So that
In
that
many
seems to-
countries, Honduras, Colombia, and other places that he listed in that
Wow.
interview.
But Ben, do
That's
you
not cool.
really
And
expect
he said he overdosed twice on drugs, whatever that means.
Okay,
Right.
well, Ben, do you really expect, our operators to serve our country and not to try to build a nest egg for themselves?
That's right. A little. That's because that's what it is, Aaron. You're right. A little for you, a little for me.
Yeah,
Like I defend your freedoms, and then then I go to a third world country.
Yes,
I
that's
get
right.
people addicted
Take
to cocaine and pills, and
Take a
I
penny,
cut people's fingers off like it's John Wick. It's
Well,
beautiful.
I mean, is
penny-
this
take a
now?
penny,
Here's the
leave a
question.
penny. Yeah.
Here's the question.
Take a Xanny, leave a Xanny.
This is all new information to me, so I don't have a strong opinion on any of this. But
Yeah,
now,
neither do I.
is this a Llewellyn Moss move? You're in this situation, you find a satchel of money. You're in this situation, I could be a drug lord. Are those radically different choices or not?
I was getting ready to ask you guys, by the way. I want to hear Ben's response to that. I was at which character do you identify with most in this book, and B, would you have taken the satchel of money? But first, to Ben answering Brad's question about do you think Llewellyn Moss is that different from Sean Ryan?
Do I think Llewellyn Moss is that different from Sean Ryan?
Maybe it's a stupid question.
I think Llewellyn Moss is actually a great person. I think
I do
he's a
too.
great man because
I do
at the beginning, he is clutching a necklace
Yes.
around his neck, and I think he vaguely describes it at some point in the book, Aaron. But that belonged to his friend in Vietnam who died, and Llewellyn may be out, hunting or whatever, but he's working through something that he carried back with himself from Vietnam.
Right.
He's out there for a very long time with his rifle. And what do we know about his rifle? Well, we know everything about his rifle at the beginning. Why do we know that? It's because he knows everything about his rifle.
Right.
That's right.
He knows every single detail, and that's the only reason Cormac lists it. And Llewellyn, him taking the money and not being willing to put it down is an interesting thing, because I don't really know, Aaron, I think he died a good man. I think if he had lived and he had got the money, he would have become something monstrous. So in a weird way, Sugar and the cartel was stopping him from, because I mean, this is like a fable, like right out of do you know the story of Jack Whitaker from West
No.
Virginia in the early
No.
2000s? You guys might remember a newspaper article about him and a couple stories about him, but he was the guy who won the Powerball. I think it was $335 million. And he was just your old country boy who would go down to the gas station and get his lotto ticket and say hi and get his like little biscuit and his soda and head on down to work, every 6:30. Salt of the earth guy, married to the same woman in 40 years. He hits the Powerball. And this is a guy that everybody loved in town. Everybody knew him. Very small town, like where I'm from. Shout out to Tuscola, Texas, if you have internet connection somehow and you're listening to this. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But he wins the Powerball, and long story short, he sets up a charity for the Church of God, whatever that sect is. I don't even know that sect. For the Church of God. 15 million. Yeah, it sounds like a sex cult or something.
It does.
No,
Yeah.
it's the Church of God of Cleveland. It's a Pentecostal church.
All right, sorry.
Stop it.
Okay.
Stop it.
Sorry. If it's not
you're
Baptist or Church of Christ, it's weird to me.
Oh, goodness.
I'm kidding. I'm coming around to Catholicism. But anyway, basically what happened in the span of, I don't know, 6 years, his niece, who he loved, that he was giving money, she overdosed and mysteriously died, and she was found wrapped in a plastic tarpaulin.
Oh my gosh.
Dead, like with opiates and stuff, or as Jack Nance from Twin Peaks would say, wrapped in plastic.
Yeah. Dead and wrapped in plastic.
He was
Good
found
grief.
dead. He left his wife. He would go to strip clubs. He got robbed all the time. He was at a strip club once, and guys came with guns, and they stole like $500,000 in a literal briefcase of money. And when the cops showed up, they go, "Why are you carrying around $500,000 in a briefcase?" He said, "Quote, because I can."
Oh my God. Right.
So it ruined his life. His house burned down in 2016. He left his wife, who was with him by his side forever. Everybody knew him as the salt of the earth guy. He became very paranoid. People kept trying to rob him. He became a shady, and he drank himself silly down at the strip club. He never even left West Virginia. It ruined his life. It took his niece's life. So when I think of Llewellyn Moss with this money, he actually died with principles. He died as a man fighting for the love of, and what Sugar kind of shows him in this weird way, even though I know he's not the one that kills him and it's the cartel, is that you cannot have both. You cannot have the money and your image and your soul. You get one. You get one or the other. You get your image and your soul, or you get the money, right? Even though he died saving this young poor girl's life, his wife thinks he's cheating on him in a motel and bagging this minor.
Right.
And it's so he doesn't get to save his image in the end, even though he did the right thing. He died the senseless death. The senseless death that Ed Tom Bell is supposed to die. Ed Tom Bell's, the rational part of him goes, why am I going to let Sugar shoot me between the eyes like he did everybody else? He's just going to keep going on. But he's supposed to lay down his life and make an attempt to kill Sugar, even though his intuition tells him that if he comes face to face with this thing, he will not live. And he knows that way, way deep in the back of his mind. And he doesn't confront it. And, well, he has a life after that moment, but it's not much of one to be happy about. He just keeps having dreams about his dad, and he keeps, kind of driving down county roads. Like, I don't even know. I mean, it's a horrible, horrible life. I mean, all the italicized passages might as well be from a nursing home. He's in a bed talking to some nurse who's on a shift at 3 a.m. and he's dying, and he's sitting there crying as a weathered old man. He's a horrible life, horrible life.
So
I think. Oh yeah, go on, Aaron.
It's kind of like the old quote: "You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself called a pedophile or something."
Yeah.
Yep.
Wait, is that the only two options?
Yep.
Yeah, only two options.
Shit.
Go ahead, Ben. You had something.
So yeah, I think Llewellyn Moss is the guy who, he would have later on in the narrative, if he had been allowed to live, he would have become a worse man. But they're all pretty bad people, man. They're all horrible people, and in a weird way, what's fucked up is, I'm not saying this in like a twisted teen locked in his bedroom, fuck you, mom and dad way. Sugar is actually the best of them, and that's what fucks me up about this book. It actually fucks me up. I can't make any sort of philosophical argument about good and evil after I read this. Way more so. Blood Meridian's way more about war to me than it is about morality. This book is about morality to me. And it raises so many nihilistic, and it's like Harold Bloom is obsessed with nihilism, and he's obsessed with Nietzsche. I don't know why he didn't connect with this book. It's like, Harold Bloom said he could read 1,000 pages an hour or something. It's like, maybe read a little slower, asshole. Like he should have took his time on this book, and he didn't. He really, I think he could have gleaned a lot from it, but the prose is very simple, and I love it. I think the prose is absolutely beautiful. I think it's beautiful. I don't think it reads like a screenplay at all. That's a bunch of bullshit from people that didn't read it.
I agree with that.
I totally agree. So, Ben, would you have taken the money?
No.
Brad?
I've been in positions like that where I could take a bunch of money and like lose my life, and I didn't. So
I have not been in that situation. I would have taken the money. Now I wouldn't steal money from like a situation where I know the people where I'm involved in or whatever. But if it's just a sack of money that belongs to drug dealers out in the desert, I hate to say it, I'm going to take it. I would have dumped it out and made sure there wasn't a fucking transponder in there or something. but I would have taken the money.
I would have walked up. I would have taken the MP5K. I would have taken spare magazines and I would have gone home and I would never have mentioned it to anyone. I would have taken nothing but the MP5.
Oh, I still wouldn't have mentioned it. Well, I would have mentioned it to my wife, but that'd be it. We'd take it and it would be.
I would tell no one. I would take the MP5. No one would know about it. That would be my
Where'd you get the MP5?
Lou Allen Moss, what'd you get for the MP5 cards?
From the Getting Place, right?
Yeah.
I don't think it's a morality thing for me though, Aaron, because I think my dad was such a monstrous, scary guy who would do, people now say it's abuse. I don't think it's abuse, but like he hit me a bunch and stuff. But like, when I deserved it, which was often. So, but I don't think that's like, I don't think it was abuse. It was just like, getting scolded or whatever, like paddle, belt. He punched me on a golf course once, but I was being a jerk. I have an authority complex. So in terms of the authority, I'm like, as soon as a cop shows up, I'm like, hi, Mr. Officer. Hi, I'm just minding my own business over here. Can I assist you in any way? The bad guy went that way. He went that way, that way. It's not me. I just start crying like immediately. When I get pulled over, I get terrified.
Well, yeah, it's scary.
Like even a parking lot attendant, I can be like, hello, sir. How are you today? Very good. Minding my own business, sir.
See, I'm kind of adversarial with the I mean, I've gotten into arguments with police more than once. And so that part doesn't, I would be more concerned about the drug dealers. And the calculus in my head would be like, well, they're mostly all dead, right? I mean, I just saw all of them dead. This is just money sitting out here. And if I leave it out here,
probably thought about that. That's a good point. Yeah.
If I just leave it out here, what's going to happen? Eventually, it's going to become part of the criminal investigation. It's going to get locked up in an evidence locker, and some cops are going to stuff it in their pockets. So why shouldn't I have it? That would be my attitude.
Someone is going to miss $2.4 million.
Oh, for sure.
No one is going to miss an MP5K.
Right. You could buy an MP5K with 2.4 million, I'm assuming.
Well, you can, but then it's got to go into NFA jail and you got to pay for the tax stamp. And it's like you can have the MP5 right then, full auto, or you can go down and pay 25 grand and then buy and give the tax stamp and put it in NFA jail and then have to be calling Hyatt's gun store every Saturday and talking to Kirk. Sorry, Kirk.
See, I'd be nervous about having an illegal gun. I'd be as nervous.
This is America.
I don't know about you guys, but I'm terrified of dead bodies. I'd never approach a dead body laying next to something because I don't know. I'm also, I have this weird fear that dolls will become animated and like kill me or something. I don't know why. I think things are possessed.
Yeah, I don't know where to put that. I don't like dolls.
I'd be a little skeeved out. I'd be a little skeeved out by a dead body for sure, but if it was $2.4 million, I think I could get over it.
I would never touch a dead body, by the way. I want to go on record. If I find you dead, you're laying there forever.
So my final my final question, who do you guys identify with most in this book?
Yeah.
You know what's fucked up is my dad is literally Ed Tom Bell. Like my dad will be like, he goes, oh man, he goes, I remember running that play at the state championship in 2006. He's like, I shouldn't have done that. He was a basketball coach, Brad. And he'll be like, man, he'll just be sitting there like, yeah, I shouldn't have ran that play. I should have done it, had him an inbound courtside thing. And you're sitting there, you're like, what? A girls basketball game? What are you talking? He'll talk about like some play he ran at like a district game in like 2003. Wow. And he's just sitting there like and I love him, but like, yeah, he gets really depressed about the past. And he's always like, I did my best to raise y'all, but I made mistakes. And he goes, I wish I could have done better. And he's just sort of like, anytime I see him, he has the same look as Tommy Lee Jones at the very end of the movie, where he's just sitting there like, it's supposed to be like a nice, like you're retired, you're having breakfast with your wife, but the guy's like, I mean, could he have a worse vibe? He's sitting there, he's like, talking.
Well, I love it. I don't even know if this is in the book, but I remember it from the film where he's like trying to help her around the house, and she's like, no, you got to get out of my way.
Yeah, she's like, you're a huge bummer. You got to get out of my face.
Exactly.
You suck ass.
Yeah. Ben's dad is like, I sent one women's basketball team to the state championships. One and only one. My
I
coaching and my bus. They shot a 14. They blew a 14-point lead. The newspapers claimed it was a crime of athleticism. I told them wasn't no athleticism to it.
Yeah, he's just lamenting that his boys grew up to become racist podcasters. But the fact that Ed Tom Bell actually, every time I reread the book, I get madder and madder about him, and that he's such a whining complainer grump. He's such a grump, and he's such a coward, and I hate him so much.
Wow.
I actually hate him. I hate him. He's such a going like and talking to uncle. He's going, dude. Think about this. Really think about this. He goes and he talks to his uncle Ellis. Uncle Ellis is waiting around with a colostomy bag and a wheelchair and a bunch of cats running around in a shack with no roof. And there's dishes everywhere, and the guy doesn't have two pennies to rub together. He's sitting there drinking coffee with a staph infection on his leg. He's like gangrene and shit. And he's been paralyzed like almost all of his life. And then Tom Bell comes to him, he sits down. Classic narcissist, classic depressed narcissist. Hey, Uncle Us. Yeah, I've been thinking about how I fucked everything up, and I'm thinking about my life and how I'm miserable. And Uncle Us is sitting there like, what are you talking about? I live in the middle of nowhere, and I don't have electricity.
Quit being a bitch.
Dude, did you see About Schmidt, the Jack Nicholson movie? It's great because Jack Nicholson, he's this depressed asshole, and he's retired, right? He has nothing to do, and he's in his late 70s, and he finds this little African kid named Undugu that he's writing letters to, that he's sponsoring back in Africa. He's giving him like $1 a day, right? He's one of those things. And in the letters he keeps writing to Undugu, he keeps writing about like retiring and like how he got fucked over at his company and about how it was too political there. Like he's writing to a kid who's like and he knows, he's seen the commercial. He's imagining flies buzzing around the kid.
Right.
He doesn't have clothes. He doesn't have food. And he's just like, yeah, I got cut off in traffic again today. Nobody knows how to, like, that's Ed Tom Bell. It's that guy that's so miserable and all he thinks about is himself. It's so weird because it seems at the beginning of this novel that Ed Tom Bell, at one point, he actually thought about other people and he wanted to protect other people. And the more, sort of inward he goes, the more paranoid he becomes and the worse of a person he gets until it just completely eats him alive. So I can't stand this character. I hate him.
Okay, so we have Ben's answer.
Absolutely hate him. So mine is Ed Tom. I probably, since I hate him so much,
projecting.
I probably yes, I'm absolutely projecting like usual, where I hate something that is just totally who I am. Right?
Yeah. Well, that's some good self-awareness, at least. Yeah.
Brad?
I mean, I think so. I'm sort of split between the three to a certain extent. I feel like I relate to different parts. Like I said, I would take the money and I would be like, I'll figure this shit out, right? We'll make this happen. I'll get the money. I'll be safe. I'll protect everybody. Not that I have the capabilities, or I'm not a Vietnam sniper, or I don't have weapons training or whatever. I do relate to Shigur, and I've at times, and I've been in situations in my life where I've thought like, all right, what Anton Chigurh would do was he would know exactly what he wants to accomplish, and he wouldn't do anything else but the exact right steps to make that happen.
Yeah, he's very type A. He's like Patrick Bet David.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So there have been moments in my life where I've been like, let's just run the Anton Chigurh program until I get to the end of this thing that I'm trying to do. Right.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I relate to him. And I think I relate a little bit to the Ed Tom Bell too, just like, because I think I might in his situation just be like, yeah, there's no point in me sacrificing myself to I'm not proud of that, but I think if I'm being honest, I might have a moment where like, what's the point of sacrificing myself if I can't actually do anything about this? I think I might let that voice win. So
Ben is Ed Tom Bell. Brad is Moss.
Yeah, probably Moss ultimately. Probably Moss the most.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Aaron, what about you?
I don't know,
Wendell.
Aaron.
Wendell.
Oh, you're not
Wendell?
Wendell. Shut up.
That's the way I
Loretta?
feel most of the time. Sheriff, we
What's
just missed
what's
him.
what's Llewellyn's wife's name?
Carla
Carla
Jean.
Jean.
Yeah,
Yeah.
are you maybe really Carla Jean if we did a compass?
No,
No.
no, it's probably Belle. I don't want to admit it, but it's Belle. I
Yeah.
mean, I went off on a thing about how guilty I felt that I didn't
Sure.
get blown up in Baghdad. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm
I
glad you didn't,
mean,
man.
I think on some subconscious level, Aaron, that Llewellyn, when, this isn't in the movie, obviously, but when Shigur walks in and he's hiding under the bed, in the motel, when he first comes in contact with Shigur is turned around and Llewellyn points the shotgun at his back, right?
right.
And he says, "Drop your gun" and everything, and then he just walks backward, and then he doesn't kill Shigur, right? He doesn't kill a guy
He had
who's
his
unarmed.
chance.
He had his chance, but this is like a cat and mouse game, and on some subconscious level, does Llewellyn know that he would kind of become like a bad person if he started like killing people, and specifically the ultimate goal of getting away with it would ruin his life, actually. So he has to stay in this cat and mouse game. He doesn't know any other way to be. He's been grinded into a pulp from Vietnam. He's a pipe fitter. He lives in a trailer park. I mean, what would that guy really do if he got all this money and got away with it? It would ruin his life. So like, why
He'd
why
buy
doesn't he
tent
kill him?
poles. He'd buy tent poles.
But
Why?
Aaron, we know he's
Gold
killed
plate
people.
pimples.
We
Yeah, but
know
that's
he has
different.
killed
That's
people.
different. It's different. It's in the context of war. It's different.
Yeah,
And he
So
hasn't
he-
killed. He hasn't killed Americans.
true. Yeah, and he doesn't know that Carla Jean's life is threatened yet. For some reason, that doesn't enter his mind at all.
It doesn't
Right.
register that this guy is actually going to, and he thinks that he could neutralize Shigur. He actually thinks he's got what it takes.
I mean, Shigur is, Shigur. I don't think anybody would assume they're dealing with a guy like Shigur if they were.
There's
in this
only one of
situation.
him out there.
Right. Yeah, I think most people, if they were Llewellyn, they'd served 2 tours in Vietnam, kind of a tough guy. They would assume, hey, if I get a shotgun and I hide in a good spot, I can probably handle this.
Yeah, the shotgun is not a bad idea, but it's not the best idea
No. Yeah.
What would have been a good idea?
in terms of firepower.
Well, if you don't know you're being tracked and you,
I always want an AR. I want an AR. I want something where I have multiple points of contact. I want something where I can reach out to 200 yards if I need to. I want something where I can reach out to 10 yards.
oh, this is good. Yeah, he should have gone to Uncle Ellis's somehow.
Right.
Something like that, where you can see him coming from everywhere, basically.
Yeah.
That might have been good.
Well, yeah, if he would have, we don't know what kind of shot Shigur is with a scoped rifle, but I would imagine he's not a bad shot, but Llewellyn's probably better.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that would have been
got
an
baggage.
interesting difference in attitude if Moss's choice wasn't like, hey, I'm gonna run. It was, no, you dig your heels in and you bar the door and you fight whatever shows up.
Holy
it could have been
shit.
a very different story.
I can't believe it's just occurring to me now, but the thing that saves Shigur is actually his humility. He's the only character with humility.
Mm.
He's the only guy at the beginning of the book that goes, I don't know where anyone stands. I don't know what anyone's actually thinking. I'm not actually more capable than the next guy, and any Tom, Dick, or Harry could, have me.
Right.
So he goes, I didn't even have the proprietor sized up, and he's an idiot.
Right. Well, I mean, he doesn't.
And that's what saves him.
Right. It is what saves him. Well, his principles aren't really entangled with his ego. At least that's not how I read it.
Exactly.
It's a
He's
set of
humble.
rules. Yeah. Yeah.
His principles are the next thing, and he won't violate his word,
Right.
and he doesn't have a sense of humor.
But isn't that interesting, Aaron? Because the principles, that's every single one of Cormac's great protagonists that we love, actually.
Yes.
Is like a loner guy who like has this set of principles he'll never violate, right? Grady, and down the line. So that's
I think
interesting
if
that
you-
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
go
if you
on.
stick to your principles, you end up like Chagor.
Oh,
Even if you are, so do you think the ultimate thing Cormac's trying to say is that there is no, like the idea of morality, all this stuff is fake, but if you want to survive, stick to your
Oh,
principles.
well, I don't think it. So I think it's a very moral book, and the book places its characters into moral situations where they have to make moral choices.
yeah.
And a moral choice is never between good and bad. A moral choice is between two bads. If you have the choice between
Mm-hmm.
good and bad, you always choose good. One
Right.
is an asshole if one does not.
Right.
But
Interesting.
if you have to pick, you have two options, you have to pick, they're both bad, and then you think which option causes the least damage,
Oh,
which is
wow.
what
Yeah.
Moss is constantly doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Constantly. Bell's
Yeah.
doing it too.
Yeah.
Shigure begins to do it.
Right.
And this is
Right.
something Bell knows that the moral choice sometimes is to die rather than to
Right.
live for no
Actually,
reason.
it's the most
Well,
moral choice a man can
this
make.
is why it's no country for old men. You shouldn't be an old man. Like if you're constantly dealing with this moral calculus, there's probably an argument to say you shouldn't live to be an old man, right? Because
Oh,
Ed
yeah,
Tom
he is.
Bell should.
Oh my God, there's this haunting line, the most haunting line in the whole book. Aaron loves it too. Do you know the one I'm talking about?
Not which one? Which one?
The line where he's Ed Tom Bell says near the end, it's about old people. Do you remember the specific
Oh
thing?
Mm,
gosh.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he
and he
goes,
says, I
yeah,
look see
say
this
it, yeah,
look on their faces.
yeah, and he goes, they don't something about them looking
They just
crazy.
look crazy.
Yeah, the old
mm.
people don't look old anymore. They just look crazy. Where he's, and you know what I'm
Yeah.
talking about when you've seen
Yep.
someone who's like at the end and they're very,
It's
very old
terrible.
and they look insane. They look like
Yeah.
Charles Manson.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
terrible. It's
Yeah.
really sad. It's really sad. What you want to do is you want to find a good death. That's what
Mm.
I believe a man should do is find his death.
I
And
find it encouraging that Cormac was on his deathbed and he was still kept wanting to pull his typewriter to him and he wanted to keep ticking
Yeah.
and tacking away until the very, very end.
Yeah.
I find that encouraging
I
because
do
I,
too.
I thought the guy might have been a materialist or something by the end and he was like an atheist and all this shit. But I don't think
Yeah.
that's true if he was still typing. According to Josh Brolin's interview on Rogan. So he said Cormac
Right.
was doing at the end.
Right.
I think the
Yeah, and
last line that was left on his typewriter was, I don't know, Frank. I say we leave him hanging there. I don't know what that means.
that's quite a line.
Yeah, what does that line mean? What
I
is
don't know.
that?
I don't know who
Yeah.
Frank is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
It's
don't
need
know.
some context. It needs some context, but it's certainly got a resonance to it.
Well,
My favorite guys never stop working until they drop dead. David Lynch, Cormac McCarthy, they just keep going.
Yeah.
my favorite guys like charge inside of an embassy like Mishima and commit seppuku and then throw their entrails at reporters.
Right.
Those are my favorite guys. Ben,
Yes.
thank you so much for coming on. This was fantastic.
Yeah, this is
dude.
great. This is
Oh,
great.
I just realized I talked way too long. I'm
No,
really
you
sorry.
didn't.
No,
No,
no.
you didn't. It was
We were-
great. It was perfect, man.
I'm
Follow
assuming
Ben-
you guys were trying to end for like 45 minutes. And
No,
I
no,
kept
no.
screaming about my
No,
dad or something.
I love it. I love
that
it.
was that was wonderful.
Follow Ben Avery is good on social media and definitely listen to Lemonparty. Ben, is there anything coming up you want to promote?
No, I mean, I'm trying to finish my book, but I don't know how to do that yet because I have never finished one. Thank you, Aaron, for guiding me so much in the process of writing and trying to figure out how to write and, most importantly, like what to read and like how to read. It's been it's priceless. The phone calls and everything. I mean, me and Aaron will talk about books so much and reread books so much and
It's been
try
one
to
of the
learn
great-
try to learn why they're good. That's the most important. Reading something means nothing.
Yeah.
Rereading it is the second most important thing, and then the most important thing is knowing why it's great. Because if you can't know why something is good, I mean, what's the
It's been one of the great honors of my life, Ben. I'm very serious when I say that.
Oh, it's been great getting to become friends with you, Aaron. It really has. And isn't there that quote where if you work in solitude, that on something that you love, that great friends will come out of nowhere and greet you? What is that line?
I think
You know
Yoda
what I'm talking
says that in Empire Strikes Back.
Does he really?
No, I don't know.
No, it's not Yoda. I know what you're talking about. I can't remember it off the top of my head. Yeah.
All right, guys, this has been
Anyway.
killer, man.
Yeah, this is beautiful. Thank you so much, Ben. Yeah. This is
Listeners,
so much
stay
fun for me.
tuned for the second and third
I
parts
have
of
the
this.
actual quote.
Oh,
It's from
give
lay
it
it
to
on
us.
us.
It's
Lay it on-
actually from Carl Jung, who you're not a fan of, but it says, no matter how isolated you are and how lonely you feel, if you do your work truly and conscientiously, unknown friends will come and seek you.
Interesting. I like that.
Yeah, that's what he said, but he's like a Nazi sympathizer, I think. I'm not really sure.
Or something. Something like that, anyway.
And with that, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.